Japan, a nation celebrated for its technological marvels, pristine streets and harmonious culture, is often seen as a symbol of modern perfection. But beneath this polished surface lies another Japan, one often hidden from view. A Japan where resilience grows from hardship, where shadows stretch across the neon lights of prosperity. In the heart of Osaka, Kamagasaki stands as a living paradox. It's a neighborhood where survival tells a different story from the nation's gleaming skyscrapers and high-speed trains. Here, the daily grind isn't about chasing dreams, but clinging to dignity. It's a stark contrast that forces us to question what lies beneath the image of perfection. Kamagasaki, in the Nishinari district of Osaka, is an unexpected pocket of poverty in Japan, a country often seen as pristine and prosperous. Hidden within a modern city, this area tells a story of struggle that's often overlooked. Walking its streets feels like stepping into another world, one where Japan's perfection is stripped away, revealing its raw and vulnerable side. This neighborhood has its roots in post-World War II Japan, when laborers flocked to help rebuild the nation during its economic recovery. They worked tirelessly, but as Japan modernized, demand for these workers dwindled. Over decades, Kamagasaki became a place where dreams of stability crumbled, leaving its residents stranded in a cycle of poverty. The living conditions here are heartbreaking. Small, shared apartments house elderly individuals living in isolation. Others are forced onto the streets, building makeshift homes from cardboard. It's a harsh reality where community support feels almost non-existent, and many are left to fend for themselves. If you look closely, you'll notice signs of hostile architecture in Japan's cities. Benches with uncomfortable designs or uneven surfaces meant to prevent people from sleeping on them. While this might go unnoticed in the urban bustle, it pushes homeless individuals to areas like Kamagasaki, compounding the problem. Gambling and illegal activities also find a foothold in Kamagasaki. The slum's underbelly is more visible compared to the tightly controlled urban areas. Gambling houses and unregulated casinos flourish, offering a temporary escape for some, but trapping others in an even deeper cycle of despair. Doyagai, meaning flophouse town, is a term often used to describe these areas. Kamagasaki provides low-cost housing for daily laborers. These accommodations are far from ideal. Tiny rooms, shared bathrooms, and outdoor laundromats paint a picture of survival rather than comfort. Surprisingly, vending machines here offer something you won't find in the glossier parts of Japan: alcohol and cigarettes. For residents of Kamagasaki, these small indulgences are easier to access, almost like a bittersweet reminder of the life they're left navigating daily. Most of Kamagasaki's residents rely on unstable daily labor jobs. There's no job security, no safety net. For the aging population who've spent their lives in this lifestyle, each day is a gamble, relying on fleeting work opportunities just to survive. Yet there's resilience in this community. Kamagasaki may lack the sheen of Japan's bright cityscapes, but it holds stories of perseverance. The slum is more than its struggles. It's a testament to the people who keep moving forward, even when the odds seem insurmountable. Kamagasaki's origins trace back to the post-World War II era, when Japan was rising from the ashes. As the country rebuilt itself, day laborers flocked to areas like this, seeking opportunity. At first, it was a symbol of hope, but over time, the lack of stable work transformed it into a place where broken dreams outnumbered success stories. The economy surged, cities expanded, and industries modernized, but this left laborers behind. Kamagasaki became a stark reminder of what happens when progress leaves people in the shadows. Once essential to Japan's growth, these workers now found themselves cast aside, caught in an endless loop of unemployment and poverty. What strikes you most is the aging population in Kamagasaki. Many of these individuals were once robust workers. Now, in their twilight years, they live in tiny, shared spaces, often with no family or community to turn to. The sense of loneliness here is palpable, like an unspoken weight pressing down on the area. The urban development in Japan didn't just neglect these people, it actively made life harder. Hostile architecture is one of the many ways the homeless are indirectly pushed out of public spaces. It's subtle but harsh, a modern way of saying, "You don't belong here." This displacement led to the growth of Kamagasaki's illegal underbelly. When there's little hope for legitimate opportunities, desperation pushes some toward gambling and underground economies. It's not glamorous or exciting, it's survival masked as escape, fueled by a system that offers no alternatives. Walking through the Doyagai neighborhoods, you'll see rows of small, low-cost accommodations. These places aren't homes in the traditional sense, they're shelters for people fighting to make it through another day. It's humbling and heartbreaking, a stark contrast to the pristine image Japan often portrays. Even small comforts like alcohol and cigarettes are more accessible here, almost as if catering to a sense of escapism. Vending machines with these items feel like an odd symbol of Kamagasaki, an indulgence within a life of hardship, reminding you how different this world is from the polished downtowns. For those still working, life revolves around unpredictable daily labor jobs. The work is grueling and the pay unstable, leaving no room for long-term planning. The aging workers in particular face a grim reality. What happens when their bodies can no longer keep up? Despite the hardships, there's an undeniable strength in Kamagasaki's residents. They carry on, finding ways to survive, even thrive in their own way. It's a silent defiance against a system that's failed them, a reminder that resilience can exist in the most unexpected places. Living conditions in Kamagasaki paint a stark picture of poverty hidden in plain sight. Tiny apartments, shared bathrooms, and communal laundromats are the norm here. For many, even these spaces are out of reach, forcing them to create makeshift shelters on the streets. It's a fragile existence built day by day. Elderly residents are especially vulnerable. Many have no family or support systems, living in solitude within cramped quarters. Walking through the streets, you'll notice elderly individuals sitting alone, a silent reminder of how Japan's aging society has overlooked some of its most vulnerable members. What makes it even harder is the lack of accessible support. Social services are limited, and the stigma around poverty often prevents individuals from seeking help. It's a cruel cycle. Those who need assistance the most are the least likely to receive it, leaving them isolated in their struggles. Hostile architecture in Japan's urban areas exacerbates the problem. From sloped benches to spikes under bridges, these design choices are subtle yet intentional, pushing the homeless further into areas like Kamagasaki. It's a quiet rejection, woven into the fabric of city planning. This isolation fosters a unique ecosystem in Kamagasaki, where illegal activities become a part of daily life. Gambling houses and unregulated establishments offer temporary distractions, but they often trap residents in cycles of debt and dependency. It's a desperate attempt to escape an inescapable reality. The concept of Doyagai reflects the transient nature of life here. These neighborhoods aren't built for comfort, they're built for survival. Small rooms and shared spaces define existence, emphasizing how residents live with only the bare essentials. It's survival stripped down to its core. Interestingly, vending machines in Kamagasaki offer alcohol and cigarettes, items often restricted in other areas. These little indulgences are surprisingly accessible, highlighting the contrast between this slum and Japan's polished urban centers. It's a bittersweet reflection of the area's unique struggles. Daily labor defines the lives of many in Kamagasaki. These jobs come with no guarantees, no stability, no safety net. For an aging workforce, the physical demands of such work are unforgiving. It's a precarious existence where tomorrow is never certain. Yet, in the midst of all this, there's a sense of quiet resilience. Kamagasaki's residents find ways to adapt and endure. It's a tough, unrelenting spirit that refuses to give up, even when the odds seem insurmountable. In their survival lies a story of strength that often goes untold. Hostile architecture is one of the quieter ways cities push homeless people out of sight. Benches designed to be uncomfortable or surfaces made uneven aren't accidental. They're deliberate choices meant to deter those who have nowhere else to go. It's subtle, but cuts deep for those it targets. In places like Kamagasaki, this approach forces people into peripheral areas where they're less visible but far more vulnerable. The city may look clean and orderly, but it comes at the cost of pushing its most fragile populations further into isolation. This kind of architecture is like an unspoken message: you don't belong here. It's a harsh reality for those already struggling. Public spaces, which should be for everyone, quietly become off-limits to those who need them the most. It's a cold and calculated form of exclusion. While urban centers implement these measures to maintain their pristine image, areas like Kamagasaki feel the brunt of it. When people are displaced from public areas, they congregate in slums, creating concentrated zones of poverty that are harder to ignore but easier to stigmatize. Hostile architecture isn't just benches and fences. It's also about how spaces are lit, how parks are designed, and even how streets are maintained. Everything is carefully curated to discourage the presence of those who don't fit the image. It's exclusion disguised as urban planning. For Kamagasaki's residents, this rejection isn't new. Many have spent years navigating systems that don't account for them. The architecture is just another barrier in a long list of obstacles, making their daily lives even more challenging. What's most striking is how normalized this has become. Most people walk past these designs without a second thought, unaware of their purpose. But for those affected, these structures are a daily reminder of how society has sidelined them. Despite this, Kamagasaki continues to exist as a haven of sorts, a place where those rejected by the system find a sense of belonging. It's not perfect and it's far from ideal, but it's a community that offers something cities have taken away: a space to exist. Hostile architecture may try to push people out, but it can't erase their resilience. The people of Kamagasaki find ways to adapt and survive, even in a system that seems determined to forget them. It's a quiet defiance, a testament to the human spirit. Gambling and illegal activities have become part of the fabric of life in Kamagasaki. With limited opportunities and even fewer resources, many residents turn to underground casinos and gambling houses, not as a pastime, but as a desperate grasp at hope. It's a risky gamble in every sense. Unlike Japan's highly regulated urban centers, these activities are more visible in slum areas. The rules seem to loosen here, creating an unspoken understanding that anything goes. It's a stark contrast to the image of order and control that Japan projects globally. For some, these establishments provide a fleeting sense of excitement or community, a break from the monotony of survival. But for many, they lead to deeper debt and despair. The illusion of a quick win often becomes a trap, tightening the grip of poverty. The existence of these illegal spaces also highlights how systemic neglect has created an environment where lawlessness can thrive. When people are left with few choices, the lines between right and wrong blur. Survival often takes precedence over legality. Interestingly, these gambling houses operate in a way that's almost integrated into the community. They're not hidden in the shadows, but exist in plain sight, serving as a reminder of the economic desperation that fuels them. It's an open secret that everyone knows but few discuss. The presence of gambling also draws in other challenges, like predatory lenders and exploitative figures. These individuals capitalize on the vulnerabilities of residents, deepening the cycle of poverty. It's a vicious system that seems impossible to escape. Despite this, there's an undeniable sense of camaraderie among the people in these spaces. For better or worse, they come together to share their struggles and victories, however small. It's a bittersweet sense of connection born out of hardship. What's particularly heartbreaking is that these activities often replace more positive outlets. With no access to community centers, recreational activities, or even mental health support, many residents are left with few alternatives for distraction or escape. Gambling in Kamagasaki is more than just a vice. It's a symptom of a larger issue. It reflects the desperation, the neglect, and the resilience of a community forced to make the best of a broken system. It's a complex story of survival, both tragic and deeply human. The term doyagai is often used to describe neighborhoods like Kamagasaki, where low-cost housing caters to day laborers and the homeless. These areas aren't about comfort, they're about survival. The accommodations are basic at best, with small rooms that barely fit a futon. Shared bathrooms and communal spaces are common in these neighborhoods. Privacy is a luxury few can afford here. The lack of personal space creates a harsh reality where living feels more like existing day by day, in the shadow of the city's progress. The rooms in these flop houses are typically rented out by the day or week, reinforcing the transient nature of life in Kamagasaki. For many, these spaces are a last resort, a fragile safety net that can be pulled away at any moment. Stability feels like an impossible dream. Outdoor laundromats and vending machines line the streets, catering to the needs of residents who live with only the bare essentials. It's a stark contrast to the high-tech conveniences found in Japan's central districts, highlighting the divide between the slum and the city. These neighborhoods have their own rhythm, shaped by the lives of daily laborers. Mornings see a flurry of activity as workers head out in search of jobs, while evenings bring a quiet stillness, punctuated by the glow of vending machines and the murmurs of shared conversations. The affordability of Doyagai areas is both a blessing and a curse. While it provides temporary shelter for those in need, it also traps them in a cycle of poverty. Moving beyond these areas often feels impossible without significant support, which is rarely available. For the elderly population, these flophouses become their final home. Many spend their days sitting outside, watching the world pass by. It's a life of quiet endurance, marked by an unspoken acceptance of their circumstances. Despite the challenges, there's a sense of community in these neighborhoods. Residents often look out for one another, sharing what little they have. It's not much, but it's a reminder that even in the hardest places, humanity persists. Doyagai neighborhoods like Kamagasaki are a testament to survival against all odds. They reflect the resilience of people who have been pushed to the margins, creating lives in a system that has largely forgotten them. It's a powerful, if sobering, story of human perseverance. Vending machines in Kamagasaki tell a different story compared to those in central Tokyo or Osaka. While sleek machines in urban areas dispense high-end beverages or trendy snacks, the ones here often sell alcohol and cigarettes. They cater to the unique needs and struggles of the residents. These machines are everywhere, their glowing lights standing out against the muted tones of the neighborhood. For many residents, they offer a rare convenience in a place where comfort is hard to find. Alcohol and cigarettes are quick, tangible escapes from the harsh realities of life. What's striking is how accessible these items are here compared to more affluent areas. In other parts of Japan, vending machines are carefully curated, reflecting the polished image the country wants to present. But in Kamagasaki, they mirror the struggles and resilience of its people. For some, these vending machines are symbols of survival. They provide more than just products. They offer a small sense of normalcy in a place that often feels anything but normal. It's a bittersweet reminder of the area's unique rhythm and challenges. At the same time, their presence highlights the disparities between Kamagasaki and the rest of Japan. The fact that alcohol and cigarettes are so readily available here speaks volumes about the systemic neglect of this community. It's as if these machines fill a void that should be occupied by support systems. The items they dispense also reflect the coping mechanisms of the residents. When life is tough and resources are scarce, small indulgences become a lifeline. A can of beer or a pack of cigarettes might seem trivial, but here they carry a deeper significance. These machines, scattered across the streets, are like silent observers of the neighborhood. They witness the daily struggles, the fleeting moments of joy, and the unyielding resilience of Kamagasaki's people. Their presence is as much a part of the community as the residents themselves. For tourists or outsiders, the vending machines might seem like an oddity, a jarring contrast to the polished image of Japan they're used to. But for those who live here, they're just another part of the landscape, woven into the fabric of daily life. In Kamagasaki, even something as ordinary as a vending machine tells a story. It's a story of survival, of finding moments of comfort in an unforgiving world. These machines are more than just dispensers. They're quiet symbols of a community that continues to endure. Daily laborers are the heartbeat of Kamagasaki, but their lives are anything but stable. They wake up each morning uncertain if they'll find work that day. It's a routine of hope mixed with anxiety, a constant struggle to make ends meet in a system that offers no guarantees. These jobs are grueling, often involving construction, factory work, or other physically demanding tasks. The pay is minimal, and there are no benefits or safety nets. For the aging population, the physical toll of such work is especially harsh, pushing their bodies to the limit. What makes it even harder is the lack of long-term opportunities. Daily laborers are hired for temporary tasks with no promise of continued work. This uncertainty keeps them in a perpetual state of survival mode, unable to plan for the future or escape the cycle of poverty. Despite the hardships, the workers show incredible resilience. Every morning they gather in hopes of being selected for a job, their determination shining through. It's a quiet testament to the human spirit, refusing to give up even in the face of relentless challenges. For many, these jobs are a lifeline, no matter how unstable they may be. The money they earn, however little, goes towards securing a meal or a night in a small room. It's not much, but it's enough to keep going for another day. Kamagasaki's labor market also reflects broader societal issues in Japan. The lack of job security and support for these workers highlights the gaps in a system that prioritizes progress over people. It's a stark reminder of the cost of economic growth. The community of laborers often becomes a source of support in itself. They share advice, resources, and even meals, creating a sense of solidarity amidst the struggle. It's a reminder that even in the hardest conditions, people find ways to lift each other up. What's heartbreaking is the reality many face as they grow older. With no retirement plans or savings, aging laborers often work until their bodies give out. It's a grim future that looms over many, forcing them to keep going long after most would have stopped. In the face of such adversity, Kamagasaki's daily laborers embody resilience and perseverance. Their lives may be marked by struggle, but they continue to push forward, carrying with them a strength that speaks volumes about the human capacity to endure. Resilience is the defining trait of Kamagasaki's residents. Despite the poverty, isolation, and systemic neglect, they wake up each day and find ways to survive. It's not just about enduring hardship, it's about adapting, finding moments of connection, and building a life in the face of overwhelming odds. Elderly individuals who've lived here for decades share stories of survival that span generations. These aren't tales of defeat, they're lessons in persistence. From makeshift homes to shared meals, their resourcefulness reflects a strength that's impossible to ignore. The sense of community in Kamagasaki is its lifeblood. Residents look out for one another, forming bonds that often replace traditional family structures. It's an unspoken agreement. When the system turns its back, the people step up for each other. Creative survival is part of everyday life, whether it's finding ways to stretch meager earnings, building homes out of discarded materials, or creating support networks. Kamagasaki's people turn scarcity into ingenuity. It's survival as an art form. While Kamagasaki faces countless struggles, it also serves as a reminder of what resilience looks like. In a world that often values appearances over people, this community proves that humanity thrives even in the harshest conditions. The stories here are complex, filled with highs and lows. Moments of kindness shine through the challenges, a shared cup of tea, a borrowed coat, or a simple conversation. These small acts of care create a sense of hope, even when the odds are stacked against them. Kamagasaki may lack the gloss and glamour of Japan's urban centers, but it possesses something deeper, a raw, unfiltered humanity. It's a place where survival is celebrated, where every small victory feels monumental. This resilience isn't just about enduring. It's about living with purpose, no matter the circumstances. Kamagasaki's residents remind us that strength isn't always loud or visible. Sometimes it's quiet, steady, and unyielding, like the people themselves. At its core, Kamagasaki tells a story of survival and hope. It's not a tale of despair, but one of perseverance. In the face of adversity, this community continues to push forward, proving that even in the hardest places, there's room for humanity to thrive.